Barr, by far. This linebacking core is mediocre at best. I've been saying it for weeks, months, probably. This linebacking core is not good. Kendricks is awful week after week. He puts up... Okay, Minnesota fans, offensive side of the ball, everybody's finally starting to learn, because they're listening to Balls Deep Sports Talk, and accept and go, oh yeah, it really is that one offensive lineman, Brandon Fusco, that's absolutely terrible. Not necessarily everybody, all the offensive linemen. It's just that one, Brandon Fusco. I'm telling you, Eric Kendricks, starting middle linebacker, has been absolutely terrible. I'm not saying he is absolutely terrible. He's a rookie, starting in a very complex defensive scheme at middle linebacker, the most cerebral position on the defensive side of the ball. So I have all the patience. Like I've got plenty of patience. I'm not saying he does suck, but he has sucked, and he's likely going to suck on the field at least for the rest of this year yet, from time to time, if not most of the time. Because that's, oh my gosh, Eric Kendricks has been terrible, and Chad Greenway has not been much better. The best Chad Greenway has been this year has been, mediocre. Okay. That's the best he's gotten this year. Otherwise, he's been not very good to terrible. And then you've got Anthony Barr, just second year, making play after play, shedding blocks, taking the right frickin' pursuit angles, finishing tackles, creating turnovers, just all world. Pro Bowler, without a doubt, Pro Bowler, perennial Pro Bowler. Okay, this guy... He's a beast. He's already there, and he's going to get even better yet. But this is 2 years in a row now that we're losing him in crunch time, second half of the season, due to injury. So I'm really hoping that this can just be a short-term injury thing, and this isn't, part of what we get with him as a player is he's never going to play 16 games for you. So boy, if only we had a backup linebacker, with a couple of years experience, a lot of athleticism, that knew and was familiar with Zimmer's defensive scheme, and could play all three linebacker positions in that. Gosh, if only we would have had somebody like that. Oh, wait a minute. We did have someone like that for the first 4 games of the season. His name's Gerald Hodges. And we decided to trade him away for a bag of peanuts and a freaking toothbrush. Gerald Hodges would sure come in handy right now for the Minnesota Vikings defense. Can we all just finally admit that trade was terrible and go, Scotty Ball, you were right all along on that Gerald Hodges trade. We got nothing for that, and it came. But not only did we get nothing for it, but it came back to bite us in the butt big time. Exactly when you said it would, exactly how you said it would. So just saying. But alas, I say, let's consider all of that whining and crying about Vikings up until this point as the balls on fire of the evening. We'll continue talking Vikings football, but we will go into the brief, this week at least, and we'll keep it as painless as possible, film review of the Minnesota Vikings that I do every week for your benefit. You're welcome. No, thank you. I enjoy it. You're welcome. But you're welcome. Thank you. But anyway, let's get to our Vikings film review segment that we call here every week the Purple Vein. That's right. Where we really go in depth and get our hand on the throbbing pulse of what is going on in Vikings Nation, and that is our film review. Now, last week I debuted a, undoubted future #1 hit single with my remake of the Purple Rain song as the new theme song for my Purple Vein segment. We will be, by popular demand, repeating that again on this week's show. However, I have tweaked my idea on it slightly since last week. I'm going to try, at least from week to week, to try, to have different lyrics, change up the lyrical content based off of where we're at in the season, so that, each week it's a fresh new song. So here we go. All right, but let's just do it. Bam, step up, rock it. All right, here we go. Boom, doom. Last Sunday they caused us all a lot of sorrow. The Seahawks and refs caused us lots of pain. It doesn't look like this will be the year we see him champion. But I talk about him anyway, and it's called the purple vein. Purple vein, purple vein. Yow! Bam! 2 for 2. Alright, something like that. So there we go. Easily amused. That is me. Yes? Alright, so anyway, let's get to the film review. As I have been venting, the referees were absolutely terrible. They ended up with an unacceptable minus 12. 12 bad calls. And that's not necessarily I'll explain some things. When I'm doing this film review, like when it comes to the refs, for example, I don't put a minus because it's a call against the Vikes. I put a minus because they threw a flag that was a bad call, or they didn't throw a flag that should have been called. It is irregardless of which team the flag would have benefited. That's not factored in. But so 12 bad, unacceptable calls. That's just a minus 12 is unacceptable for a ref crew on one of these games. Then the special teams did not play very good. Not good kick returning outside of the one touchdown that Cordell Patterson took back to the house, which was our only points of the game. Not good coverage either. Special teams overall had a 5/7, which included a penalty. It was a bogus penalty, but a penalty nonetheless for an overall minus 2. Kickers were pretty much uninvolved. Then coaches. It always starts at top, right? At least that's where we try to start our understanding. And both coaches had a bad game. Zimmer, head coach, both defensively and in head coach game management decisions, 9 pluses to 14 minuses for an overall of a negative 5 grade on the game. That's just not going to cut it, especially when you're playing the Seattle Seahawks, team that's getting hot, a team that's been to the Super Bowl the past 2 years, won one of those Super Bowls, kind of won both of those Super Bowls, but that's another story for another day. But you can't have that from your head coach, especially against a good team like that, and expect to have any chance of winning. Norv Turner was very similar, 9 pluses to 10 minuses for an overall of negative 1. So both of our coaches were in the negative, combined with a negative 12 on the refs and a negative 2 on the special teams. Man, there really isn't a whole lot of player execution that can overcome that, right there. But we will go over the players nonetheless. But our last unit that we'll discuss is the offensive line. They did get 2 minuses as a group in my reviews, which is very rare. Generally, the minuses only come individually on the offensive line side, and the pluses come as a group. So, a little alarming to see those 2 minuses there. They did have 19 pluses as a unit for an overall plus 17. They're good games. They've been in the plus 20s there. So a little low, but not super bad. And then instead of saving it for last, let's go from that team grade then to the individual grades, because everybody up here in Minnesota, where I live, just rips the offensive line. Everyone says the offensive line sucks, the offensive line stinks, the offensive line's terrible. No, they're not. No, it doesn't. And whatever. No is the answer. Okay, there is one lineman that sucks. The whole offensive line does not suck. The whole offensive line is actually fairly decent. All of them do make mistakes from time to time, as is the case with any offensive lineman on any offensive line on any team in the National Football League. But so let's go over those offensive linemen. Matt Khalil finished with 3 minuses and no pluses. Not one of his better games, but by no means a terrible game. When you're the left tackle all alone on an island, 3 minuses for an entire game, it's not good, but it's not terrible either. It's just a little bit subpar. Then, of course, we've got our center, Joe Bacon Double Cheeseburger, excuse me. He had no pluses as well, to 2 minuses. Right guard Mike Harris had no pluses to 2 minuses. However, one of his minuses was a bogus freaking penalty, totally bogus penalty. So he should have had just a no pluses and a 0 minus, or a 1 minus, excuse me. But instead, a bogus penalty gets him a second one, so then asterisk on that. And then T.J. Clemmings was actually your best offensive lineman, debatably with Mike Harris, depending on how you view that bogus penalty. Clemmings actually had a plus, the only offensive lineman with an individual plus on a play, to go along with his 2 minuses. So we had Joe Berger 0/2. We had Harris 0/2 with an asterisk, and we had Clem with 1/2. And then we had Khalil with 0/3. So not particularly good games, but not overwhelmingly bad games on any of those either. And again, the right side and Berger, though center, right guard, and right tackle all played fairly well. The left tackle, he had a slightly below, par outing. And then the man we skip there every week because he's the guy we single out. If you listen to Balls Deep, you know the problem on the Minnesota Vikings offense, the number one primary problem that would just, it'd make a whole lot of things better. Not everything, it wouldn't fix everything, but it'd make everything better, is left guard Brandon effing Fusco. Trust me, I say the uncensored version at home about 1,000 times per Vikings game. Effing Fusco, effing Fusco, effing Fusco. That's all you'll hear out of me sitting next to me at a Vikings game. Because as a former offensive lineman, I am particularly knowledgeable about grading film, especially when it comes to the blocking elements and aspects of the game. And Brandon effing Fusco is worthless. He is a handcuff, a cancer. He's got to go. He is the problem on the offensive side of the ball. He finished with an 0/5, 4 minuses, and a penalty that wasn't bogus. So again, a -5 overall from Fusco. Everyone else was -3, -2, or -1. -3, -2. Okay, -0 or +1 is a great game. -1, pretty good game. -2, decent to good game. -3, meh, kind of a meh game. And then -4 or worse for an overall grade as a lineman. That's a terrible bad game. And Fusco is every week. Every week he's somewhere between -4 and -10 for a grade. I think maybe he's had one good game this year. But yeah, so there's your individual offensive line grades. So your overall offensive line play, because there's a big debated, everybody wants to complain about it here in Minnesota, and they're not as intelligent and smart as I am. So I hate listening to it. And I'm trying to straighten it out on my show here every chance I get. So last week's overall offensive line performance was, drumroll please, a 20/16 +4. Could be +5 if you don't hold the bogus penalty against Harris against him. So not bad, actually, if you follow how my grading usually turns out. That's an acceptable number. It's not an overly good number, but it's certainly not a bad number. And again, you look at where is the negative coming from. It's all coming from one freaking guy, and he plays left guard, and he's number 63, and his name is Brandon effing Fusco, and he sucks. And next year, he needs to either go back to being right guard or not be on the team at all. And if he's our left guard next year, then nothing will change. Nothing will change. Even if Sullivan comes back, nothing's going to change. This guy can't play left guard. I'm telling you. And I was a left guard, a right guard, and a center at various stages in my football career. So I'm fairly confident I know what I'm talking about on this stuff. But it's all Fusco's fault. It's all Fusco's fault. What isn't Fusco's fault is Teddy's fault. Let's get to Teddy. Everybody here in Minnesota finally ripping on Teddy getting off of the bench.